All right, welcome, fellow TFFL owners. It's our first in-season webcast of the 2015 TFFL season. It's Wednesday evening, September 23rd, 2015. We've completed 2 weeks of regular season action so far, heading into week 3. I'm Stick, managing editor of TFFL Media, joined as always our commissioner, Chief, our defending champs, Berto from Jack's Giant Killers.
Hey, Stick.
Two-time defending champs, I should say.
Yes.
And Hank from the K-Wheels. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So for the moment, just for the moment, we're it's probably a little too early to start talking about won-loss records. Too early to be celebrating 2-0 or fretting over 0-2. In fact, 8 of our teams are 1-1 right now. There just isn't enough separation. So too early for us to draw any conclusions there. We spent a lot of time on the webcasts last year trying to figure out when is the right time to start drawing some conclusions. When should teams start going all in on a playoff push or planning for next year? We actually criticized some teams that didn't make moves soon enough, and you might remember it led to a tough trading deadline because everybody was sort of thinking they were still in the playoff race. We'll talk all about that, I think, maybe even as soon as after week 3 next week. For now, we're going to celebrate the 2015 TFFL draft. We're going to evaluate each and every franchise's moves in the draft. Really there are 3 ways to improve your team. You can do it through trades, through free agency, and through the draft. And there's no single day that provides as many opportunities to improve your team, to add talent, as draft day. So how did each owner do? We'll start with the defending champs. I like always to start our conversations with them. They've deserved it. They've earned it. And for that, we're going to turn to our NOCO East correspondent, Chief.
NOCO East correspondent. There's a little pissants on the ESPN.
Yes.
Okay, so keeping in mind that the Jack's Giant Killers are the 2-time defending champion, keeping further in mind that the bills they were pushing back finally came due this year. I mean, we're looking at the first pick at number 36. He took a lot of grief, Berto did, about taking guys such as Steve Smith and Fred Jackson. Fred Jackson. Yeah, Fred Jackson. I was saying Steven Jackson, not him. But I think if the goal is a 3-peat, and I really think it has to be, those are solid picks. Those are the guys you don't have to worry about. You can plug in. They're not gonna drop 3 touchdowns anytime soon. But they can contribute. As opposed to a guy like Cody Latimer, who just doesn't fit in with the plan as I see it, and it was probably taking 7 rounds too early as I see it. Follow up with Marcus Sweeten again. I think that's a very good pick at the 5th round. It's a first-round draft pick last year. He was overdrafted, but I think he was underdrafted this year. Joe Flacco, great. We'll see. He's a guy now for the next 6 to 8 weeks, whatever it is, 8 weeks. Joe Flacco is going to drive the Giant Killers season. So it's a good job of him, picking up a competent backup a little bit earlier than most other teams, probably about a round and a half earlier than most teams were taking backup quarterbacks. The annual Gostkowski pick, as Berto says, he never regrets it, at expense of a depth receiver or whoever.
Especially this past week.
Carrying a victory. Half of the Patriots' Polish power. And, I like what he did in the end draft. Michael Rivera, he's undraftable. But other than that, I like what he did. Thomas Rawls as a guy I was looking at with my pick that was upcoming that round. He took another guy I really like late. Can't think who it is right now. Let me scroll down a little bit. Maybe not. But overall, I think that a couple of head scratchers aside, and beauty being the eye of the beholder, all that. Who doesn't have head scratchers? I think for where his franchise is, Berto had a good draft. I think he had a good draft for 3-peating, not so much for 4 and 5 and 6-peating. I would expect this to be the last hurrah of Mike Bertolozzi, and that's if and only if they can compensate for Romo being gone.
Well, I think it's clear that they still had a title run in mind with this draft. Yeah, obviously they went with a lot of older players. Even Terrence West, not necessarily an older player. A guy who's going to get some carries this year. But yeah, there were Marcus Wheaton, Michael Rivera, Cody Latimer. Didn't really like those picks at all, and we'll see. So if a lot of injuries strike this franchise, we're already obviously seeing one with Romo. Arian Foster's still out. I think the depth could get tested, but Berto knows how to deal with these things. He's won a couple titles here.
Yeah, I can't criticize Berto. You deserve the benefit of the doubt on most of these things. I think you did. I like the Steve Smith pick a lot. I think Flacco is a very capable backup, and yes, we will now see. Yeah, I mean Michael Rivera. Who cares? There's some questionable stuff at the end, but I think we can probably say that about almost every team. So yeah, I echo what these guys are saying, and I hope your team gets shredded with injuries, and you have to play these guys. So. Good luck.
I won't spend a lot of time defending my draft. The only thing I will say, one positive and negative. Yes, absolutely gunning for a three-peat. Cody Latimer was a bit of a reach. That was more of a heart tug to see if he can do something. So, yeah, I get that one. Also, you look at the Flacco pick, and I think it was a good pick, but then if you look at a couple picks after that, you had Mariota, you had Winston, I think in the bottom of that same round. So an argument could be made even with Flacco that maybe I should have, tried to get one of those guys as a future building block if, in fact, Romo's done. He could very well be.
Right.
So that was a bit of a misstep. But yes, three-peat was in my mind. Let's get guys who I know are going to play, like a Roddy White and a Steve Smith. The Fred Jackson, Thomas Rawls is to secure the Seattle backfield. And maybe that's a bit of the issues I've had with, and honestly, it hasn't even been an issue. But between Turbin and Christine Michael, I tried to pry away Christine Michael from Stick for a couple years, and I couldn't do it. And in the end, it didn't matter. But I said this year, you know what? I'm going to at least shore up that piece. And Fred Jackson served me well in the playoffs. So I said, you know what? If he gets the ball, he's going to be serviceable. But there are a couple reaches there, no doubt. Rivera, yeah, I punted on that for sure. So not a perfect draft by any means, but
and Berto, I know you would like us to look at your draft in the context of the Jeremy Hill trade a year ago.
Yeah. No, that's another big thing. I mean, last year, making the trade with the Beavers to get Hill, and I gave up my first pick, which would have been the 12th. Yeah, I think that one's panned out. So, you can't look at the draft, and it's tough to do this. And as we go through each team, we're gonna forget about some trades and everything that people did, but it's tough to put a draft in context without looking at all those trades. So.
All right. Well, in order to get through every team in an hour here, we're going to try to cut it off at 5 minutes. Let's move on now and start working our way. We started with the champions here. Let's now flip to the other end. Start working our way from the top of the draft on down. The number one overall pick, the Boba Fats. We're going to turn to our NOCO West correspondent, Hank, now for a quick introduction to the Fats and their draft this year.
Thanks so much. It was fun to get this assignment and look at these guys in the NOCO West, and I guess I hadn't really taken a look at the details of the Fats draft until today, and I'm blown away at how bad this really is. There's definitely questions at Gurley at number one. We can argue that, but I don't. I think that's a fine number one pick. I have no arguments there. That fine pick. Martavis Bryant at the top of the second round, I think, is really tough for a team that is, kind of in the middle and maybe trying to make that leap into the playoffs and maybe could do it. You don't draft a player that's not going to be worth anything for the first 4 weeks of the season at the top of the second round. I mean, top of the fourth round, sure, but that's too early for that pick. And then Denard Robinson is the follow-up in the top of the third round, and I'm not sure he's going to see the field again. I mean, he's not very good. Niall Davis is a fine pick. But, then we go to the Jameis Winston pick, and now we're going to see how good Jameis Winston is. And, Berto just commented about maybe I should have reached for one of the rookies. You do that when you're trying to build your franchise. You have a rookie on the roster, and if you take a rookie, you probably draft a third quarterback, so you don't really have to play that rookie. And I think Fats will be looking for more quarterback support. So will Berto. He's going to need somebody in case Flacco goes down. And if you're going to take Winston, I think you got to get somebody else to back him up, and Fats would likely be using one of his free agent picks to do that. Sproles, we know what he is, fine, but I don't love it. Same with Vernon Davis, Michael Crabtree. It's a lot of that crap. It's a lot of the stuff where, like, yeah, I guess if you have to start him, but there's nothing good there, and then you throw in Bilal Powell at the end of to round it out. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Well, I think just the opposite of the killers, and yeah, they're at the opposite ends of the draft. The Fats clearly, and kind of surprisingly, are already playing for 2016, it looks like. Yeah, I mean, Gurley's not going to play the first few weeks of the year. We already knew that. Martavis Bryant isn't going to play the first few weeks of the year. This is on top of Julius Thomas, a keeper, who we knew wasn't going to play the first few weeks of the year. They go out and they add Jameis Winston, maybe not a bad pick, but all of these things are signs that the Bats really didn't think they had a chance this year. I'm a little surprised at that.
Yeah, I don't know. If he was playing for next year, I'd be okay with that. And you look like some of these other guys, and Hank, said it, like Darren Sproles and Bilal Powell and Vernon Davis and Michael Crabtree. These aren't guys.
4 or 5 of them. There's not just 1 or 2. There's 4 or 5 of them.
These aren't guys who are a rebuilding team. And I understand we're getting down to the 6th, 7th, 8th rounds. The coverage is getting a little bare. But, pick a direction and try to maximize your roster to fit that plan. You seem to have it a little bit both ways here. Maybe he's trying to do what Thornburg did a couple of years ago and play for the next year and luck into competing that year. I don't know.
So I'll say this. How about we start off with this? Maybe remotely drafting hurt Fats' ability to.
I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Could be. Maybe throw that out there. Another dig. I'm sure Ralph will appreciate that.
I don't think there's any doubt about it.
But I'll say this: I don't hate Martavis Bryant in the second round, and here's why. So you look at the rest of the second round. We have, and I'll go in order here: Charles Johnson, Kevin White, Cameron Artis-Payne, Marcus Colston, Josh Robinson, Alfred Blue, Larry Fitzgerald, Dwayne Allen, James Starks, Danny Woodhead, Sam Bradford. In all honesty, there's nothing there that blows me away. What are you going to get? An Alfred Blue and get a couple games, or Danny Woodhead, whatever. So, in my opinion, Martavis Bryant in the second round, although, yes, he's going to miss some games, but this guy is showing some really, really great potential this year and next year and in the future. So I don't actually hate that pick. Gurley is a no-brainer. So the rest of his draft, I admit, was not great. But I don't think Martavis Bryant in the second round was a bad pick. When you look at the rest of that second round, it's not anyone that jumps out at you. And I defy anyone to come up with a name on that list that jumps out at people.
Well, and we've looked at second rounds from previous drafts, and it's often like this. It's kind of surprisingly barren with maybe one player that ultimately pans out. I know we'll get to the aliens here in a second. I had 3 second-round picks this year. universally panned. But it's comforting to look at the rest of the second round, and it's all in the eye of the beholder.
It's like, meh, eh. And then I look at Martavis Bryant, I say he's the best of the bunch. So if he was playing the full season, he's head and shoulders the best guy in the second round. The best guy in the second round. So, Fats is going to get a serviceable 2/3 of the season out of him, and then whatever the future will bring after this for a guy in a good offense, and that I think is a solid pick.
All right, now, I'll grant you that. Now let's take him and say he was a decent pick. All right, so let's look at the rest of it then.
No, and I agree with you. I agree with your and Chief's synopsis of that. The rest of the draft, my only debate is on Martavis Bryant. I agree with you on the rest of the draft. I think it was shite.
Okay, well,
But I think,
I will concede that Martavis Bryant, in some eyes, is a good pick. I don't think it's in the eyes of a team that's really trying to win the first 4 games of the season. Larry Fitzgerald called. He said he's better.
Okay.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on here. Ampac, number 2 overall, second in the draft order. Back to Chief. What's your analysis of Ralph's draft?
If they're Rip Robes. He did take Melvin Gordon number 2, and that was almost a unanimous decision. I was kind of curious if he might go, Amari Cooper there, but he didn't. That's fine. Charles Johnson, I thought was a really good second-round pick. I think Johnson was probably the best pick of the second round. I think he would have been a better pick than Bryant, but I think Bryant was also a good pick. I'm not going to beat up on Martavis Bryant. Now the third round. The third round is where you make or break teams, and the Packers had a bunch of them. In order: Eric Decker, Brandon Coleman, Eddie Royal, Ryan Tannehill. Decker, great pick, right? A little surprising he fell that far. He would have been better off at the first pick in the second round, probably, than Martavis Bryant. I think he got a little aggressive with the Brandon Coleman and the Eddie Royal picks. I don't think Eddie Royal was in danger of going anywhere for that shit offense he's in. Ralph's had a man crush on Tannehill for a while now, so that's probably surprising. Having him last year, I know I'm lower on Tannehill than most of the fantasy football universe. So I don't want to go really. Chris Johnson's going to be a good pick for him. Don't want to go pick by pick, but I like what the Impact did. Here's a team who was uncharacteristically bad last year, and I can't think of any other word better than bad. It was just bad. And he made some moves to get his team. He's in a tough division. He's probably not going to make the playoffs with 4 games between the Giant Killers and the K-Wills. But man, at least he can compete this year. He did a good job getting guys that are going to help his team. Because man, let me tell you, when you're out of it by week 2, week 3, that's a long season. It's a long season when you're out of it on week 12. But you got to have something to play for. And I think Ralph, as we said in an earlier webcast, probably had the worst roster last year at the end of the year. I think he took some pretty good steps to rectify that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the position he obviously had to tackle in the draft was wide receiver. Unfortunately, I'm not sure it's really panning out very well for him right now, especially with Jimmy Graham really sort of taking a step back in Seattle's offense. Charles Johnson hasn't done what he's supposed to do. Brian Quick hasn't even been active yet. Decker's now injured. So I'm not quite sure the Impact have the receivers they thought they were going to have here. The most intriguing pick to me was Josh Gordon, I think in the 9th round or so. Is he another Justin Blackman who's never even going to come back into the NFL? Perhaps. But I think Gordon's still got some immense upside, and if the Impact really are still looking ahead to 2016 before they can compete, Gordon's got some intriguing value.
Yeah, I'll say this. I wasn't big on the Tannehill pick or the Eddie Royal pick, or honestly even the Brandon Coleman pick. I think all those guys could have been had later, but you know what? Just all of us, we're all guilty of this. We all start researching our drafts, or most of us, and we start reading up on a guy, and we fall in love with him. We're like, we're gonna draft this fucking guy, and he's gonna go, and I gotta grab this guy. So I can understand the Brandon Coleman pick actually in there. Tannehill, I thought was early because I think he could have gotten a good backup like a Joe Flacco or somebody like that later. So I didn't love the Tannehill pick either. I agree with Chief. I'm not a Tannehill water carrier either. I think he's going to be serviceable, but not the next coming. But I think if you look at the Packers draft in terms of their trades, trading away Benny Cunningham, Antonio Gates, and a 13th round pick to the Wheels for a 3rd round pick. Trading away Frank Gore, C.J. Anderson, and a 10th round pick to the Hams for Bishop Sankey and Keenan Allen for a 3rd round pick. Trading away Steve Smith to the Mongols last year for a 3rd round pick. When you look at it in the context of trading all those guys away and getting the talent that they did, that's pretty impressive. So Ralph made a commitment that he was going to unload people last year, and he got all those picks, which I think was brilliant. The execution in the 3rd round was a little lacking. I think he could have done better, but who knows? But he put it out there to get all these guys, so we'll see. Is he going to regret trading C.J. Anderson away? I don't know. Maybe not, because he's got Sankey there, and he got Keenan Allen back. So who knows how that trade's going to turn out, and a 3rd round pick to boot. But we'll see.
I will largely echo everything you guys said. I think that he made some good moves to get the picks that he got. I don't think he did the best job of utilizing those picks. Eric Decker, Eddie Royal, Tannehill, like you said, not worth reaching where he did for them. I like Damian Williams as somebody who might be interesting. Melvin Gordon is definitely a building block for the future. So, it's a Ralph draft. I think he got the guys he wanted to get, and I got to go do some childcare.
Luke's back there thinking, Daddy's doing important business right now.
I will say this, and I agree with what Chief said about the Eric Decker pick. I think that was a great pick. And that one, and in all honesty, that was a guy that I was going back and forth with. Is that somebody that I should keep? I think that was a good pick.
Yeah. I've long said Ralph drafts late better than he drafts early, and I think that was another example in this draft. What's up, Luke?
Hey, Luke.
Hi, Luke.
Luke, get out of here. Come on.
Damian Williams and Josh Gordon in the 8th and 9th rounds could, I don't know if it will, that could be a large coup for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. and Stick, I don't know if we want to get into or whether this is a separate conversation about the and maybe we're going to hold off on this drafting kickers and defenses. I don't know if we want to go into that topic yet, or we holding off on that? Or?
Well, we can come back to that one next week.
Okay.
That might be a tangent that takes us too far off path here.
Okay. Because Ralph and I did have a drunken debate for about at least an hour about that strategy over draft weekend. So we'll have to dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think we'll spend some time on that. So, okay, next up is my team, the Aliens. Number 3 in the draft order. We didn't obviously pick in the first round. Back to Hank, our NOCO West correspondent.
All right, I feel like I've been talking a lot, so I'll be brief. But, again, I think Stick, we have to take into fact that he loaded up on second-round picks, did not have a first, and had some guys that he, thought that, might be able to help him. Kevin White is not a guy who can help him right now or probably this year. So are you drafted him at 15 overall, and now you got to keep him if you're going to get any value out of him. Cameron Artis-Payne, all right, maybe a bit of a draft darling. Not sure you get any value. Marcus Colston's sort of a bad pick. We're going to see, but that's sort of a bad one. Christine Michael, okay, sure. I like Michael Floyd better than that pick. Getting Jordy Nelson back could be fine. Again, you got to keep him before you get any value out of him. If you got a keeper stop for him. And Rashard Perryman could be interesting. He might be interesting. He might not ever play. I think the Aliens, or you went into this thinking I got to make some moves. I got to try and get some blocks and that to build with, and maybe you got some, maybe you didn't, but. Man, I don't know that you put together the kind of roster that's going to end up being a really great, effort this year. And maybe that's not the point, but I got plenty of questions about your strategy here.
Yeah, I don't want to oversell this, and not to put too fine a point on it. I think this is a historically bad draft.
I wasn't going to go there, Chief.
Chief, wait a second. You wanted to put not too fine a point on that? I don't think you could get finer.
Well, I mean, and like Phil said, if the plan was to tread water for a year and see who pans out, fine. But I don't think that's what's at play here. I mean, I said this to Stick before, and I've said it to probably everybody because I get drunk, I get loud, and I get repetitive. But listen, you're effectively playing with like a 12, 13-man roster, it seems, for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. Kevin White you can't use. Cameron Payne you can use if one of your other guys gets hurt. Marcus Colston, okay, you can use Marcus Colston. To what effect, I don't know. Mike Floyd, broken fingers, but I haven't been following how good he's this year so far or not. Jordy Nelson can't use. Rashad Perryman can't use. Adam Vinatieri's missing field goals, but you had no way of knowing that. Yeah. So I do like what you did coming up to the draft. I thought you did some very shrewd moves, and I don't want to comment on that because we're talking about just what you did with the draft picks that you had. I think by the time some of these guys are ready to contribute to the Aliens, you got the outside of the playoffs looking in.
Yeah. I don't know. There's not much.
I'm 0-2 and you're not, so.
There's not much I can add. I will say this: I don't hate the Cameron Artis Payne pick. That's fine. But there's no you're not to like. Yeah, Kevin White. I don't know. It's like maybe falling too much in love with these draft picks. Honestly, I think Stick, you had enough firepower to move up and to get a couple studs versus 5 or 6 guys who may or may not contribute. And again, maybe it's just me, but I would have gone. I like to go up. We talk about the 1A, 1B in the first round. I would have liked to seen you go up and get the studs in the first round and move further up rather than a collection of other guys who may or may not help. I will say this though, I don't think Jordy Nelson is terrible there, because I think if in fact, and it seems like what you're doing with the draft is really not about 2006 or 2015, it is about next year and beyond. In that context, Jordy Nelson is a stud, and that's not terrible. So I don't hate that one either. But I would have liked to have seen you do something bigger, bolder, move up and get a couple studs versus the guys that you got.
All right, give me a minute to try to ramble because I've been taking bullets for weeks now, and I might agree with you in saying that maybe I could have moved up and in fact I did send some trial balloons to Fats about moving up to the 1 spot for Gurley, but in fairness to the Aliens, I think that plan was dashed when Jordy Nelson goes down with an injury, when Martavis Bryant gets suspended. And when you talk about going and getting studs, I like to think that's what I did with the trade to drop from 3 to 7 and get Ben Roethlisberger, a stud quarterback, get Sammy Watkins. Jury's still out on whether Watkins is going to do a ton this year, but had a nice week too. Allen Robinson by moving back from 7 to 12.
Yeah.
Had a stud week 2 performance. So, and that was what, and all those trades then gave me what I felt like was a strong, healthy, active keeper list. 7 guys who, take Darren McFadden aside. But I was going to start 3 receivers week 1, 3 running backs week 1 who were going to play and get touches, a quarterback who's going to score every week of the year. So I felt like I had a little bit of opportunity there to gamble on some higher upside players.
Yeah.
And like everybody, I want to make sure I come out of this draft with at least one guy that from the moment I draft him, I feel like he's a building block who's going to be a 2016 keeper. Kevin White is that guy. I mean, and I feel good about the upside I got with him falling out of the number 3 spot. He was a guy, on par with Amari Cooper, who I could have been looking at number 3 at one point if he'd been healthy. I got Carson Palmer at quarterback in this draft, and he's a guy already with a lot more value than what I spent on him. Eric Ebron at tight end actually looks like he's got some upside. And Jordy Nelson is a guy that I can not only keep next year, but I've already that really was 2 picks in 1. That became Dante Moncrief out of the gate.
Yeah.
So I'm the highest. I was the highest scoring team in week 2. For the moment, I'm feeling good about our 2015 performance, while also feeling good about having a lot of assets to help with in 2016 and beyond.
Yeah, and you make a good point, and you're absolutely right. I should have talked about the drafts or the trades rather, and you touched on that. Getting Ben Roethlisberger, getting Sammy Watkins. Yes,
Agreed. You deserve credit for that.
So that and that's part of the equation here. And in all fairness, that should have been mentioned, by one of us. So I fully agree on that part of it. You got to incorporate that part of it because that's all part of the draft is those trades. And Ben Roethlisberger and Sammy Watkins clearly, is an upgrade. And the fact of the matter is, dealing with the Jordy Nelson injury and the Martavis Bryant suspension, that's a big hurdle to overcome right before the draft and coming into it. So the trades that you made, I do like. I would have liked to seen you go the extra step with the trades and get the stud with all of the ammunition that you had.
All right, let's move on from the aliens here. Our next team in the draft order is the Senators. Number 4 overall. The Senators, of course, like to trade, and they ended up with the number 3 overall, the number 4 overall, the number 10 overall from the Devils. And I'm going to cover the Senators, at least introduce them, and you guys can certainly chime in. So entering the draft, we knew the Senate. Speaking of historically bad things, the Senators had a historically bad keeper list. Looked a lot better once Brady's suspension got wiped out, but even so, the running backs and receivers were pretty atrocious here. The Senators were already making an investment in 2016 by trading for and keeping Kelvin Benjamin at receiver, so they did not enter the draft with a strong keeper list. Again, they had 3 and 4 overall. The big decision was, do you take 2 running backs there? T.J. Yeldon, we knew, I think, always was going to be one of those 2 picks. Do you take a second running back, or do you take Amari Cooper? Time will tell on that one. I think Kramer made a good value decision in that there were going to be higher upside receivers still available later in the draft, but maybe not a second high upside running back like Amir Abdullah. And so ultimately, the Sens made a lot of really good picks for 2016 and beyond. They got a 5-pack of stud rookie talent to build around. The 2 running backs at the top in Abdullah and Yeldon, 2 receivers in Nelson Aguilar and Dorial Green-Beckham, and Marcus Mariota, rookie quarterback in the end of round 5. Chief maybe was fooling with us all along, but there were people who I think believed a rookie quarterback could go in the first round. Mariota at the end of the 5th has to be considered a good pick. As far as bad picks, the only one I'll bring up, I think long-term we're going to look at Abdullah perhaps as a bad pick. I think Cooper is the real special fantasy talent there who's going to score a ton of points for 10 years. I'm not really. Abdullah's exciting, but I'm not sure he's a 10 to 15 touchdown guy year in and year out.
I'll just jump in quick and say that, yeah, I agree. I give Kramer's draft an A minus, and I mean he even did things like he picked up Tyrod Taylor, who's turned out to be pretty good, and he picked up the two young receivers that he got are building blocks, and he went really young, and I think that was his strategy. The minus is, and I agree, I think maybe he's going to look back and regret not taking Cooper over Abdullah, but I think that's the only knock I'll give him. I think he had a great draft, so well done, Crane.
Hey, real quick, since you brought up Tyrod Taylor, we do have to knock him for having to draft 3 quarterbacks.
Yes.
Because he overlooked
bye week. Yeah. Well, but he wanted to get Mariota, and I guess I wasn't really going to knock him for that because if you want him as a potential future and he's looking like a good idea, then you take him and then you draft Tyrod Taylor, and it also looks like he might be good. You never know, you might be able to trade Tyrod Taylor after a bye week.
So, I mean, we've panned the Senators plenty in these webcasts.
Yes.
And rightly so. But I think they hit a home run during the draft. Now you could quibble that they did give up Antonio Brown. I mean, that's big.
Yeah.
But I think what they've got back, and Kramer went in with a plan that, you know what, fuck this year, I'm getting young guys. I'm going to pass on some of these old guys, and I'm getting young guys that I can keep next year. And I'm going to load up, and I'm going to take 2 running backs with those first 2 picks, with the thought that definitely one will pan out, and the other 50-50 chance, and build a running back foundation, which he hasn't had in years. So he went for it, and he got the rookie quarterback, and he got talent, got young talent all over the place. Clearly, not picking for 2015. And then all of a sudden,
he's 2-0.
He's 2-0, and he's got Tom Brady, and he's off suspension. And now you look at his team, and you're like, shit, he could make the playoffs with a 2-0 start. So now you're like, damn, this team could blossom earlier rather than later, and that should be a scary proposition.
Yeah, he hit the reset button. I'm not expecting him to compete this year, but 2-0 certainly helps. But yeah, he hit the reset button. He's got to be excited now about what he's got going forward. No worries about filling 7 keeper spots next year.
No, and the only pick I don't like here is Ruben Randall. And maybe Green Beckham was a little bit high. And I love Abdullah. I think Abdullah's a good pick. In fact, I'm surprised I stayed at 5 because after Abdullah was gone, I was looking to trade out. But unfortunately, Kramer, who most wanted it, had traded the pick he was going to use to move into the 10 spot, which is the number 1 next year, which we had talked about to move into number 5. Regardless, you look at that, and as you were saying, is he going to regret passing on Amari Cooper? So you look there, and he's ended up with in the first round, at 4 and 10, Abdullah and Aguilar. He'd be off with Amari Cooper and David or Duke Johnson. Yeah, probably. If you had a crystal ball and could see what was going to happen in the draft. But man, you're right. He's 2-0. I don't think he's going to continue, leading the division and leading the playoff chase. As soon as he falls out, how big of a trade chip is Tom Brady going to be to a team in contention? He's got another first-round draft pick sitting there.
Yep.
If he falls out of drafting. In fact, Burrow should be working the phones right now. But he's getting better. He's really on the right track. And as a division competitor, I'm not thrilled about it, but good for him. As he said, he's taken some gratuitous shots over the last year or two. So let's give him his due today.
That's a great point about Brady, Chief. Okay, let's move on now to the sponge, number 5 in the draft order. We've already acknowledged they got Amari Cooper, who slips to that point. So again, I'm covering your division. I'll introduce the sponge here. The one franchise that did not keep a quarterback let Phillip Rivers go. Chief, real quick, I was trying to figure out, has there been one franchise quarterback that you were able to hang your hat on for a while? Is there a quarterback that comes to mind when you think sponge over the years?
No, besides Brady?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, yes. I'm sorry, I forgot Brady was with you.
Like an 8 to 10 year quarterback.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of him with the Sens. But yeah, ever since you traded him away, I know you've been searching for the new franchise quarterback, and this year decided to cut ties entirely with Rivers and look for somebody new in the draft. And you know, the other thing you've been looking for a long time that I still think you're looking for, a stud receiver, a long time quest to the sponge. You've done a good job building a receiver core with Golden Tate, Brandon Cooks, to trade for Terrence Williams, but I think still looking for that stud there. So Amari Cooper at number 5, great pick, great value, easy pick there. I think that's exactly who you were looking for. There were 2 other picks I wanted to give you credit for that jumped out at me. Pierre Garçon I thought was very good value as a veteran receiver in round 7. You know, and I think you could see that coming with Deshaun Jackson being injured. The Redskins are going to throw the ball, and Garçon's the guy who's going to get it downfield. David Cobb, rookie run. You know, so you took Amari Cooper, you didn't get a rookie running back in round 1. David Cobb was a guy I was you know, looking at you know, in the number 6, number 7, number 8 overall range, middle of the preseason when he was still healthy. So I think getting him in round 8, even if he's not going to play until week 10, you still got yourself, I think, a very good rookie running back talent to make up for the fact that you didn't get one in round 1. Bad picks, you know, I think you've already acknowledged a little bit of concern about Eli Manning. I think it's too early to call him a bad pick, but I do think it's evidence of ongoing concern at your quarterback position. You need to find a stud, and I'm not sure you did in this draft.
I'll jump in. I love Amari Cooper. I think he is going to be really good, and I think that was great. You know, not having a second rounder, needing a quarterback. You know, I didn't love Greg Olsen where you took him. I mean, I think we know what he is. There's 10 guys who can do what he can do. You know, and then Eli. I just don't know. I don't know that he'd have gone. You could have had him in the 5th or 6th round, I think, if you wanted him as your quarterback. You know, I candidly was worried that you were going to take Teddy Bridgewater in there someplace. But, you know, I think it's about Amari Cooper panning out. I think, you know, overall, you know, you got some guys you can plug in. But yeah, I think stick at it with Eli being a little early.
Yeah, I would say this. Yeah, it's all about Cooper. He hits, then the draft is a hit. David Cobb, what round was that? That was round 8.
Round, that's good.
Yep.
You know, that's nice. I like that late. You know, a solid draft. You know, getting if you get the 1 or 2 keepers out of this draft, you know, you did what you needed to do. Amari pans out, that's it. You know, it's a success. Or not pans out if he's a stud. And one other guy that pops out of this draft with all these picks, I think to me it's a solid draft. I have no issues with it. Yes, I agree. The Eli pick maybe a little bit early, but you know, other than that, it's hard to quibble with anything here.
Yeah, I was missing a 5th round pick, so I wasn't gonna draft again for 30 or some odd picks. But I had Eli as the top rated quarterback in the draft, and frankly neck and neck with Rivers, so I didn't really worry about losing Rivers. Everything I just said, you know, when David Cobb got hurt, and I was talking about trading back to the Beavers, number 7, knowing I could very happily take David Cobb there, and once he got hurt, that kind of cleared that deal. Yeah, I'm very excited to see him still on the board, you know, in the 8th round. It was just ridiculous.
And the other thing too, I forgot to mention is the Terrence Williams trade, right? So Chief went out, got, you know, and honestly, I have to admit, this is one that I'm kicking myself a little bit. a little more so prior to the Romo injury, a little less so after the Romo injury. But you know, and I don't want to bring this back to the Killers, but a guy who I was contemplating keeping, I traded him away because I needed some draft picks, and then I'm like, well, fuck, this is a young receiver, his third year in a good offense. So Chief did make that trade as well for a fifth and an eighth swap. I think it was fifth and eighth.
I think so, yes.
So you got to add that to the equation too. So he did get a keeper there. So that was another good trade I think that was made, and I think Chief probably got the better end of that deal with me. Maybe I should have kept him as a guy that is a younger guy and has some youth. So you got to add that to the equation as well.
All right, we got still half the league to cover here, so let's move on. 3 of the 6 teams remaining are in the SoCo East, so we're going to get to hear a little bit more from Berto as our SoCo East correspondent. The Mongols, number 6 overall in the draft order, a team that seems to perennially draft in the middle of the draft, and sort of get stuck trying to find that stud. Robert Griffin didn't pan out as a quarterback they took in the first round. How'd they do this year, Berto?
Yeah, I like the Tevin Coleman pick in the first round. I think that's the guy to take there. No qualms about that. Honestly, the Josh Robinson pick in the second round, okay. I don't have a big issue with that either. Again, going back to the other guys that were drafted right after that, he's a rookie running back. And if you can get that in the middle of the second round after a guy like Artis Payne and Duke Johnson, I don't have any issue with that either. As you go down a little bit, the Anquan Bolden in the fourth round, maybe that's we can quibble there. That's a little high for him. But again, you look at veterans like Steve Smith and a couple of the quarterbacks that went, so maybe that's not a terrible pick either. Reggie Bush, I don't love that in the 6th round. Again, to use Phil's expression, you know what you got there, and it's not a lot. Javaris Allen in the 8th round, again another rookie running back taking a swing at something. Right after Chief took David Cobb to pick right after that. So who knows? But again, there's no signs that this guy is going to do anything yet. So again, a bit of a reach potentially. And then you talk about guys like Malcolm Floyd and it doesn't. There's nothing here that is hugely wrong with it. It's just there's not a pick here that you hang your hat on and say this guy is an absolute keeper for next year. And I think that's the issue with this draft. But again, the Mongols also did go out and get Travis Kelce, who I loved, and I think he's a great player, and he's a great tight end, and he's getting the ball, and he's the guy that Alex Smith is going to throw to in that offense. Obviously, he's not throwing any touchdowns to wide receivers. We all know that. So I did love that, and that was a good value for him, I think, in a fifth round pick for me, because I couldn't keep him. So if you add that into the equation, it's not a terrible draft. I'm just concerned that the Mongols maybe is a team that should have taken a path like the Senators and just shook things up a little bit more and see if they can move up and get instead of getting a bunch of guys who are going to play or maybe not play or maybe pan out or not pan out. I think the Mongols' better strategy would have been to take a page out of the Senators' playbook this year and get active and start making some trades and move up and do what they can to get some guys. And they didn't do that beyond the Kelce trade.
Yeah, I had sent Terry and Badass an email congratulating them on Kelsey, and I think Tevin Coleman is a great pick in the first round, and largely I think getting those two guys make this draft relatively acceptable for them. But then again, I think they didn't capitalize on a lot of other depth or opportunities to try and win this year. I guess I question with Ralph taking Tannehill so early in the second round, did they panic on Phillip Rivers right after that, which then forced Chief to draft Eli Manning, right there as we kind of just bashed him for? Is that the domino effect that happened? Because I think Rivers is early, I don't love that. I think maybe the Mongols' best pick is going to turn for this year is going to turn out to be their 12th round grab of Kenny Britt, who's off to a pretty nice start and is somebody they could start and would be worthwhile. So I don't hate it. I don't love it. I think it really comes down to, Tevin Coleman panning out, and we'll see how that goes.
It was a perfectly cromulent draft.
Yeah, blah, whatever.
Hank still has a soft spot for Kenny Britt to this day.
I love Kenny Britt, man. He's my man. He's gonna show something one of these days.
Hey, but going back to what we said before, and Chief, sorry to step in, but if they get two keepers out of this, being Coleman and Kelsey, and Coleman is a stud, then we'll look back on this and we'll give it a higher mark. But right now, it's a
Yeah.
Coleman and a bunch of guys is what I look at it. Is what I see.
Well, and I wasn't going to comment at all, but Josh Robinson, and he hasn't looked good so far, but, Frank Gore's not going to run forever. He might possibly be looking at his last year here. So he might get another keeper out of that deal. So we'll see. But yeah, it's a perfectly competent draft.
Here's my issue with the. I mean, this draft itself might turn out to be very good, but I think this draft and where the Mongols are now is a real repudiation of their last couple drafts. I mean, this franchise is treading water. We can talk about Tevin Coleman maybe being a great pick, but if Tevin Coleman turns out to be a great pick, all that means is that last year's first-round pick, Devontae Freeman, is suddenly worthless.
Yeah, but I think
RG3, their first-round pick of 2 or 3 years ago, is gone now. This team is treading water, unfortunately, and maybe they get a couple good picks here, but it's at best going to replace the holes that have been created by previous first-round failures.
that's true. But the only thing, and I said this when we did the mock draft on the webcast about Tevin Coleman going to the Mongols, is Devontae Freeman's a sunk cost, right?
Sure, I get that. Yeah.
You've already invested in him. Go and get the best guy that you think you can get. And if that's Tevin Coleman, and if one of those guys becomes the stud, then you're in good shape. Now, if they're both mediocre, then yes, that's a monumental problem. But you need one of those guys to step up, and then it validates having, both of them.
Nope. Okay, next, let's keep moving on here. Next up on the list is the Hormel Hams. They did not actually end up drafting in that number 7 slot in the first round, trading back and in and out of the first round, eventually landing at number 12 overall. Entering the draft, I think the Hams came in with as much confidence as anybody. They were being touted as a Pac-Bowl favorite, might still be. A balanced team. Solid quarterback at the top in Matt Ryan, stud wide receivers. They made the trade for Antonio Brown to add to Calvin Johnson. Frankly, I thought the running backs were a little overrated, the keeper running backs. I think Frank Gore has relatively limited upside, even in the Colts offense, and Andre Johnson even less upside. I'm not a big fan of his. Good picks. A lot of pre-draft trades. They landed at number 12 overall. David Johnson is looking like an explosive rookie running back who's probably going to, at least right now, looks like a good value there at the 12 spot. A lot to shake out there in the Arizona backfield before I think Johnson's a regular fantasy starter, but so far so good. Followed for the Hams by number 19 and number 24 in the second round. Those picks haven't turned out so well. I think Alfred Blue looks like a bust already as a pick that may just be totally worthless. Sam Bradford at the end of the second round. I think a lot of people saw that as a reach by the Hams. I thought it was a good, bold move if Bradford was the guy you really liked. I could see the upside in the Eagles' offense, obviously, but that's not looking really good right now. And another pick I just wanted that stood out to me was Tyler Eifert in round 4. I actually didn't think that was a good pick at the time, but he's obviously off to a good start in a good Bengals offense that needs more weapons in the passing game, and that might be a solid running back starter for the Hams if Andre Williams really isn't an every week starter.
I'll start off if you don't mind. I love what the Hams did. So I love the Antonio Brown trade. Michael went and got the brass ring, and he got the guy who's going to be there for a long time and a good offense, who's a stud, who's not old. I think that was brilliant. I like the Alfred Blue pick. You're right. In hindsight, it's not panning out right now necessarily, but I think we talked about in this webcast that, and I'm happy to see that Arian Foster will be back hopefully sooner rather than later. But I didn't hate the Alfred Blue pick, and again, that was another guy that I was considering slightly keeping. I don't hate that pick. I like the Tyler Eifert pick. I was big on him. I liked him a lot. I had no expectation that I was going to draft him or would have a chance to draft him or would be able to or whatever due to my draft situation, but I really liked him. So I liked and again, you mentioned David Johnson in the first round. I really, really like what the Hams did, and it all starts with getting that blue chip guy, Antonio Brown, who's how old, 27?
Sure.
28, whatever he is. To me, that's brilliant. I give the Hams an A.
I think this was a very typical Michael draft where he had guys that he wanted to get, and he went out and did it. And I don't know that I can give this draft an A at this point. Alfred Blue is looking bad, even though hey, going in we all thought that would be a good guy to have right off the bat. I think the Sam Bradford pick was a real reach, and seeing if he's gonna be anything, I don't know. We'll see. He hasn't. I don't know that he's really shown that ever. My daughter. Eifert, I thought was. I'll agree with Berto. I thought it was a reach at the time. I think it's looking good. You got Jeremy Langford. Who I had not really looked at very much, but he looks like he's going to be a good pickup for him. But there's a few reaches in there along with Michael's go for greatness guys who might be great.
Yeah, my favorite pick was actually Tyler Lockett in the 6th. That was my next pick. He lasted my next pick. That's the guy I was focused on. And Hank Hankerson in the 8th looks like he's a pretty good pick. It looks like he's taking over for Roddy White in Atlanta, which if anybody saw it coming, 3 weeks ago. Sam Bradford, I just don't understand why you'd want to take the first quarterback. Okay, you want to take the first quarterback off the board. I understand. I don't think Sam Bradford, who has barely played in 2 years, and can't throw the ball 15 yards downfield, was in danger of coming off the board anytime soon. And I'm sorry, I still just don't get the idea. If you got to draft 2 kickers, then use one as your first FA pick. That's blows my mind.
Yeah, I agree.
That was bad.
I agree. Not good use of the FA pick. They are gold. They are gold.
Well, they're not gold, but if you're gonna do that, then take a flyer on the receiver or a running back, and then you have to cashier one or put one on the IR or whatever. Then you do it. But the idea of taking 2 kickers is so you don't have to use an IR pick later or an FA pick later.
Yeah, I agree, and I agree with that part. I will say this about Sam Bradford, though. I think Michael's thought process was that he had the Nick Foles, Matt Ryan situation when Nick Foles was flying high, and that Eagles offense was in real good shape, and Nick Foles was part of that.
Sure.
I think Michael was trying to recapture some of that with Sam Bradford because he had Nick Foles in his team when Nick Foles was lighting it up and the Eagles offense was lighting it up. And maybe he's thinking, you know what? Look at these other guys that are here. Let me pick this guy in this high-flying offense who should potentially light it up in this offense. And let me see what happens here. And maybe, maybe he's thinking this guy is trade bait for somebody else. I don't know. So I don't actually hate that pick. And maybe that's what wasn't going through his thought process. But I know for just the fact that he had Nick Foles, and he had a Nick Foles and Matt Ryan decision to make for many weeks, because Nick Foles was doing really well. That had to play into the thinking.
Yeah, but they're two different quarterbacks. Nick Foles has a great arm. He can fire the ball over the field. Sam Bradford is like Chad Pennington redux. It's like if Brady left the Patriots and they went to Ryan Lindley next year, and you got to drop Ryan Lindley to do the things that Brady can do. It's just.
All right, let's move on here. Number 8 in our draft order, the K Wheels.
Oh, we have to go again.
And so we'll be turning to Chief here for our NoCo East reports. Tell us about Hank's draft.
No first or third round pick, so you're dealing with a couple empty chambers in the gun. I think Larry Fitzgerald is a perfect pick. I don't think he's lost it. As long as Carson Palmer's playing, he'll do just fine. I'm not ready to turn the keys to the kingdom over to John Brown just yet. Devin Funchess, I think the jury's pretty much out on him. But at the time, it was a reasonable pick. He's going into that same spot as Kelvin Benjamin, the bigger receiver who has a rookie. That Cam Newton liked to focus in on, especially in the red zone. Hasn't happened yet. It might not this year. Bridgewater, love it. He was my number 3 rated quarterback in the draft. And I would have actually drafted him. I was going to go quarterbacks back-to-back if he was still on the board in the 6th for me. So a good pick there. And it wouldn't shock me to see him start for the K-Wheels starting next year. I'd be surprised if he doesn't start for the K-Wheels next year. So that's a good draft pick. I think Taliaferro's good, and Kyle Rudolph, he's good in theory. Eventually, he'll be healthy enough to do something. I think the K-Wheels had a good draft. I think they put themselves in good shape to keep their window open for a little bit longer and try to get that Pac Bowl.
You want me to jump in here, Stick, or you?
Yeah, no, go right ahead.
I love the Wheels draft. I would put it 3rd. I would go Senators, Hams, Wheels. I think the Wheels had a rock solid draft. I think the Wheels drafted as a team who still has aspirations and a legitimate shot at a Pac Bowl, pending Peyton Manning's arm. So the draft, what the K Wheels did makes complete sense to me, and I get the thought process in every pick. Larry Fitzgerald, let's get a wide receiver who can play every game, who's gonna get in there, who's got his quarterback back and healthy. Not having a first round pick, he needed to make sure that he's gonna get a starter there. The Wheels get a guy to replace the guy that they didn't keep in Devin Funchess. Perfect in the 4th round. They can gamble there a little bit. Teddy Bridgewater, who is a homer pick, but again, a guy who was on the roster last year who's flashed. Good pick. And I think there's, you go down the rest of the draft and there's solid picks. Like I have a guy who's going to contribute, who's back healthy this year. Kyle Rudolph, a guy who scores touchdowns when healthy. There's nothing to complain about here in this draft. It's a solid effort top to bottom.
I think that's the key, Berto. There's no pick to hate.
Right.
In the Wheels draft.
I was really worried about Hank and his draft because I think he would admit he was not super prepared. And he did make the colossal draft mistake of forgetting to bring his lists to the draft. But yeah, I thought he did a very good job here. You can't criticize the Larry Fitzgerald pick at this point, obviously. I thought the Funchess pick was probably a smart, good value pick there at 4. He might have liked Niall Davis to have slipped to him there in the fourth round. And I got to tell you, I mean, Teddy Bridgewater to me is actually a really special player. He may be a great NFL quarterback in time. Whether he becomes a great fantasy quarterback, we'll see. But I thought that was for a team that has Peyton Manning and they're probably not keeping him beyond this year. That's a nice, easy transition, especially for a guy that roots for the Vikings. Nice job, Hank.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you guys see what I was trying to do. I mean, you're right. I did not have the weapons to try and put as much into this draft, so I did not study the top guys. I did not look at David Johnson and Duke Johnson and be thinking about those guys. I had targeted Larry Fitzgerald right away, hoping that he might fall as soon as the keeper lists were announced. And, yeah, I'm hoping Devin Funchess reincarnates as Kelvin Benjamin. And, you know, the rest of it is just hopefully guys who can play and that are on relatively good teams that might be scoring points and have to be playing meaningful games as the year goes on. So, yeah, thanks. I hope it works out, and I hope the window is indeed still open. And we'll go.
All right.
Go Peyton.
Next on our list is the Beavers, team that was actually number 9 in the draft order, but we know they had 3 first-round picks, 7, 8, and 9. Berto, you got the Beavers and then the Devils coming up after them.
Yeah.
Start off with the Beavers for us.
All right. So the Beavers. The Beavers made a lot of trades. They traded their first last year to me. They got the Wheels first. They traded up. They did a lot of things. And then they stalled. Just when I thought they should have made that one final push and that one next trade, they didn't do it. And what they did is they drafted guys in the first round, right? I do like Matt Jones. I'll say that, and he's looked good already. And I said during the webcast that we had on the mock draft that the Beavers would take Matt Jones, and sure enough, they did. If they didn't take him, the Devils would take him. So I do like Matt Jones, but I gotta say, Joyke Bell and Devontae Parker after that, I think they could have done better. I think the Beavers pussied out a little bit. I think they should have gone for greatness, and they didn't do it.
Beavers pussied out.
Who heard that?
Amanda be pulling the puns from the living room.
Nice. Was that intentional, Berto? Nice.
They should have traded up. They should have gotten a bigger stud. Joyke Bell, come on. You got Abdullah there. Devontae Parker on Miami, I don't know. I'm not sold. So, I don't know. I haven't even gone through and looked at the rest of the Beavers draft, to be honest with you. But I got to say, those 3 picks, I'm not impressed. I like Matt Jones, but I think the Beavers had so much ammunition, and I think they squandered it. And I'm not even going to go through the rest of their picks.
Nice. Gets back on time here.
Yep. Moving along.
I mean, I think the Beavers wanted to move. I know they wanted to move up. I know they were offering a big package to Kramer at one point to get up to number 4.
Yeah, Bill's big packages aren't really that big.
No.
I didn't. I thought he was, from what I understand, I thought he was offering decent value.
But just look at it rationally, right? You walk away from this draft with 3 first-round picks, and that's the 3 guys you walk away with?
Well, that's a different issue. I mean, the fact that he stayed there and then, he had said and told us all year long he was accumulating these draft picks because it was a running back heavy rookie crop that he was going to use to rebuild his running back core. Matt Jones looks good already, yes, but Joyke Bell I thought was a terrible pick there at 8. I liked Devontae Parker. I thought he was a great rookie receiver, but I thought that was probably early in the grand scheme of things.
Way early.
And then Dwayne Allen I thought was an uninspired tight end pick in the second round. In fact, the first tight end off the board long before Greg Olson in the third round, and so I'm not quite sure the Beavers really came away with those first 4 picks with the young talent they really said they were going to get there.
Think about all the other combinations you could come up with here, even without trading the draft picks away. You could have come up with Matt Jones, fine. Nelson Aguilar, David Johnson. You could have came up with Matt Jones.
No, take Kevin White.
Kevin White.
Larry, or how about this? Matt Jones, Larry Fitzgerald, and Duke Johnson.
Yeah.
There's so many other combinations that would have been so much more attractive than the 3 guys that they got.
Yeah.
So I think it was draft picks squandered.
I will say this in defense of Bill, or maybe it's not. I don't know. It might be a backhanded compliment. But he was offering a package to move to 5, so he'd take Tevin Coleman. But is Tevin Coleman really a better pick there than Matt Jones?
Right.
I mean, so again, yeah, his first pick's fine. His second pick, yeah, whatever. Joey Bell could contribute at some point. He's definitely a touchdown guy if he's healthy. Devontae Parker is no need for a guy who's just got healthy for week 1 to be a first-round pick, second rookie receiver taken. And then the Dwayne Allen's mind-boggling. You got a part-time player on his own team, and you got to take him at whatever you took him at, 21 overall. I mean, it's. I took Kobe Fleener in the 6th round last year and took a heap load of shit for it. The other half of that tandem.
Real quick, yes or no answer across the board. Hank, please go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to give him some minor credit for the Derek Carr pick and Tavon Austin later in the draft. I think those are actually pretty good picks where he got them.
And Kendall Wright, I thought was a decent pick in the 4th. Yeah, he made some solid picks later in the draft. Sure. Real quick, yes or no answer across the board. If he had taken Martavis Bryant with one of those 3 first-round picks, would you have approved?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I think if you have 3 first-round picks, you can afford to take a flyer on something like that.
Better. What I'm hearing is better him than Devontae Parker.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you got to look at where the Beavers are at. Beavers are a team who can win it all this year. They're a really good team. They're a really good. Here's what I don't like about the draft in a nutshell. They're an awesome team right now. They're a very, very good team, I think. And when you're a very good team and you have 3 first-round picks, and that's what you come away with, instead of gambling on greatness or packaging them for a stud or whatever you need to do, I think he didn't hit it out of the park.
Yeah, that's a great point. He took 3 first-round picks, and really none of them make his team better this year.
Matt Jones does.
Can you really start Matt Jones? I mean, maybe a bye week or something, but
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, this is arguably the second or third best keeper list.
Okay, let's
third worst draft.
Yeah.
Let's move on here. Dirt Devils, Berto, you're still covering that division for us. Nick made speaking of last-minute trades. I mean, literally last minute to trade out of the number 10 spot with Kramer. So it was not in position to get that trademark veteran running back at the end of the first round.
Yep. Man, Nick, and I make a point of making sure that Nick doesn't sit next to Stick at the drafts.
Good. We should never allow Nick to sit by Stick.
But I will say this: maybe I'll allow them to sit together next year, because Nick had a pretty good draft in my eyes. I love Nelson Aguilar, the first round. Again, Bradford's shaky right now, but I think that was a very good pick. I like it a lot.
No, that's Senators.
Oh, that's the Senators, right?
Yeah, they traded out of that.
All right, let me revise then. Nick's draft totally sucked.
Yeah, you got James Starks in the second.
Early, fine.
Starks in the second. Who else do we have here? We got
Lewis.
Jarek McKinnon. I don't love that either.
Philip Dorsett, the fifth, could be good.
Jason Witten is a nice pick in the fourth round. He's going to score.
Nick's superstar pick right now is James Jones in round 6.
James Jones, Philip Dorsett in the 4th round.
I'm going to say it's probably
Fifth
Dion
round,
Lewis.
excuse me, 5th round. Okay. I can look at that. A little curious, he picked Owen Daniels in the 7th round after getting Witten.
Yeah, the 2 tight end strategy. Never liked that.
Yeah.
It's a Nick draft.
Yeah, I love Dion Lewis at 28 overall.
You got guys who are going to contribute here. He didn't hit it out of the park, but it's a solid draft.
Yeah, I'll agree with Lewis. And obviously, you can see Nick was trying to get running back depth. He took Starks, Lewis, and Jerick McKinnon right off the top. And if Adrian Peterson gets hurt, which is certainly not out of the realm, could be a very nice card to have.
Yeah, Patriots play that opening Thursday night.
Who's his quarterback?
Who's his backup quarterback?
He went out and drafted Alex Smith.
Yeah. That's
Hey,
terrible.
Patriots don't play opening Thursday night. Dion Lewis is a sponge stay in like the 11th round. So and he's had a great season so far. He's playing that Wolverine role better than Vereen did.
Alex Smith is other quarterbacks to draft there. Drew Brees is getting old. I don't know. I don't like that. There's so many. He should have gotten a quarterback earlier. A good solid backup for a 37-year-old quarterback. I don't like that pick. I don't know. This is like a C draft.
It shows the lack of quarterback talent in the NFL because the backup quarterbacks went fast this year.
They did.
Or so it seemed.
We've been trying to take lots of things into context when evaluating the drafts, and so let's keep in mind with Nick that by getting out of that number 10 spot this year, giving up what ended up being Nelson Aguilar, he got Kramer's first-round pick next year, I believe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I hate to say this to my dear friend Nick, but God, this franchise looks like it's about to blow up. We knew coming into the year he had a fairly weak keeper list with Victor Cruz on there, with 2 aging running backs, Matt Forte and Alfred Morris on there, with an aging quarterback such as Drew Brees. And Brees has now, got a shoulder issue. I fear, just looking across this lineup, which is not very inspiring, I do fear the Devils are going to be a bad team in very short order. That 2016 pick hopefully will help lessen some of the impact of what looks like an uninspiring draft this year.
I think Nick is going to hit it out of the park with the Alex Smith, Jeremy Maclin combination.
And
Chiefs will start scoring touchdowns from the wide receiver position.
Let's give Nick some credit. By round 8 or so, he's focused on cleaning and not drafting. He'll poke his head in and announce a pick. So thanks, Nick.
Yes, I will thank him for that. And the other thing I've learned over the years is Nick never seems to know what he's doing, and there's some mad scientist gene going on there that Nick will be relevant in week 10 and 11. I got a hunch that will be the case.
I've often made that case. I fear this is the time it's going to blow up.
It looks like it's going to blow up.
I think he won't be.
Deodorant there.
I think he won't be. I'm looking at his roster again. He won't be.
All right.
Too many holes.
All right, we got one team to go. Here. Let's wrap up. We got the Lizards.
Oh, it's me. All right, let's talk about the Lizards. The Lizards actually look all right. They, the Duke Johnson over David Johnson thing is going to maybe be something we'll look at in the years. We'll see. David Johnson looks really good so far, and Duke doesn't look like, we don't know really. Danny Woodhead, nice pick to back that up. Jordan Cameron, okay, he was good last year. Charles Sims, player. Marcellus Bennett's a player, although another tight end. 2 quick tight ends for the Lizards. Cam Newton is the backup. I like the Carlos Williams pick for the Bills. That's starting to look pretty good. The Lizards did fine. Who's their backup quarterback?
Cam Newton.
Cam Newton, that's right. So, I think they did fine, if not spectacular. The Lizards were in the Pac Bowl last year, and they're looking to be there again. And, I think they got some second-tier pieces that can help.
Yeah, Lizard's the only guy who likes Danny Woodhead as much as I do. Such a serviceable running back who seems
You just plug him in and play.
Usually seems to fall longer than he should, and he's usually one of the best better running backs you can pick up in the draft. I agree with you about the Johnson versus Johnson point.
Yeah, we'll see how that pans out. I'll be back.
Yeah, I mean, the Lizards entered this. You talk about some of the best keeper lists entering the draft. The Lizards entered with Andrew Luck, an incredible group of receivers, Adrian Peterson. So they were at the number 10 spot or number 11 spot in the order. So clearly, they're, by virtue of their keeper list and their position in the draft, I think having to try to take veterans or guys who are going to contribute for them right away. They needed guys who could play running back. Given that Trey Mason's going to lose his spot, and they didn't have a third keeper at running back. So I think what we need to see is, does Duke Johnson end up contributing this year? Does Danny Woodhead continue to contribute and offer enough value that you can start him? Does Jordan Cameron, is he a guy you can plug in as a starter? Does Charles Sims step up? There's a lot of guys who they probably weren't bad picks, but they're going to have to step up to show some value. Cam Newton, again, solid picks throughout the draft, but I'm not seeing a lot of upside, if you will.
Yeah, I think they got guys who they can plug in, and a great keeper list, and a team that's in it to win it this year. I do know that I talked to Rich and Adam after the draft, and they fucked up the whole tight end situation.
That's a good point.
I think they wanted to take Martellus Bennett earlier, and somehow between Rich and Adam actually putting the sticker on the board, there was a communication issue, and they didn't get the guy that they wanted, and then they went back and got Martellus Bennett afterwards, from what I gleaned from talking to them after the draft. But that aside, it was a good draft, and they got guys who are going to contribute. So
let's keep an eye on Jay Ajayi in the 11th round as the year goes by, because he could end up emerging in Miami and being a keeper next year.
Yeah, good point.
All right. Well, there's our look at the draft for all 12 teams. Again, we're now entering week 3 action. I think maybe as we get together next week, we'll be able to start talking about how the draft really has panned out and how teams are starting to take shape in the early makings of a playoff race for 2015. Before we get there, Chief, any reminders, any rants? Pay your bills, I guess, everybody?
Pay your bills, let's just get back into the routine. FAIR, Saturday by noon. Eli Manning's on tomorrow night, so we'll find out very quickly if I'm going to be a player or not. 0-2 facing the Giant Killers, not an ideal situation. But
come on, Chief, I'm cheering for you. Let's go, Eli. Go, Sponge.
That's as far as my rants. I'm too tired for a rant right now.
That was a long webcast. This was an hour and a half talking about these guys.
Yeah.
I hope everybody's still with us.
Good intentions.
All right. Well, so people know that we went in order of draft order, so maybe they can skip ahead to their team if they want.
Yeah.
Fuck that. They better watch it from minute 1 to the end.
Yeah.
Should we have some kind of prize for people who make it this far if they could give us the secret word?
You might be onto something.
Secret word is Little Bobby.
Is Little Bobby. All right, Little Bobby.
Let's see who makes it to the end.
Berto will give you a shot of Knob Creek. Chief will give the Knob Creek. Who had that?
I used to have it.
I'm drinking the Pale Ale tonight.
Okay, Dale's Pale Ale for anyone who knows the secret word.
So the prize for making it to the end of the webcast typically has been the answer to the trivia question. I did forget to ask it at the start, but I do have one. Would you like to hear it real quick? You'll get immediate gratification here with the answer. So I went through the last 6 years of TFFL first-round drafts. Can you tell me which franchise has the most first-round draft picks made over the last 6 years, and which franchise has the least first-round picks made? And I'll tell you, there are actually 3 teams tied for the least. So if you give me any one of those 3, you
Over the last how many years? 6 years?
6 years is what I happen to have.
All right. So what are we looking for? We're looking for what?
The most first-round draft picks made and the least.
All right, I got a guess.
Go for it.
Here is my guess.
Most is the Sens. That is correct. And least, did you have the Killers?
I have the Killers.
The Killers are one of the 3 teams, so that's 2 for Hank.
Winner.
That's exactly what I get too.
Sens and Killers, all right.
I would have said the Killers and the Beavers, but
The Sens have the most with 9 picks in the first-round picks in the last 6 years. The Beavers are actually second with 8. And then we had 3 teams tied for the least amount of first-round picks in the last 6 years. The Killers with 4, the Devils with 4, the Aliens with 4.
Wow, I would have got the Devils, but not the Aliens.
Well, the Aliens traded out of the first round this year. We traded away the pick that became Arian Foster to the Killers during that span. We do have a tendency to trade down and out of the first round. A lot of good that's doing us, says my wife.
That's right. Amanda is on it tonight. Amanda may be in line for the guest commentary spot. She may have to become an actual voice.
that's right. There may be a guest spot in your future.
All right.
Wait.
Bring the wit.
Wait, am I cleaning up on the funny?
Oh man, see now you went too far.
All right. So, I think about an hour and a half we went tonight.
Listen, it was worth every minute.
Every minute of it.
It was. So, we'll be talking playoff races already next week. But good luck to everybody in critical Week 3 action. Hopefully, I don't think it's going to be possible for Chief, but you try to get on the winning side of things with a 2-1 record at least after this point. So good luck, everybody. We'll see you a week from today. Take care.
Excellent.
Excellent.